A young woman walks down a country lane. She believes she is about to start a new life. She is dressed in men's clothing to avoid suspicion. Her belongings have already been carried ahead. Waiting for her, she thinks, is the man she loves. A man who has promised marriage. A man who has promised escape. She is never seen alive again. For nearly a year, her family receives letters. Letters claiming she is happy. Letters claiming she is married. Letters claiming she is living far away. But something feels wrong. Then comes a dream so vivid, so disturbing, that it convinces a woman to search a barn that everyone else had long forgotten. Beneath the floor of that barn lies one of the most famous murder victims in British history. And what followed would become a sensation unlike almost anything the 19th century had ever seen. Newspapers couldn't get enough of it. Playwrights rushed to put it on stage. Ballad singers performed it in pubs and marketplaces. Thousands traveled simply to see the scene of the crime. This is the story of Maria Marten and William Corder, the story of the Red Barn murder. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you enjoy deeply researched true crime and forgotten historical mysteries, you'll find plenty more stories waiting for you here. Now, let's travel back to rural England in the 1820s. The England of the 1820s was a very different world. This was a society obsessed with reputation. Marriage mattered enormously. Respectability mattered even more. For women especially, social standing could be fragile. A single scandal could follow someone for life. Small villages operated almost like closed ecosystems. Everyone knew everyone else's business. Rumours travelled faster than horses. The village of Polstead in Suffolk was exactly that kind of place. A quiet agricultural community. Fields stretched across the countryside. Families had often lived there for generations. Yet beneath the peaceful appearance, social pressures could be relentless. Into this environment was born Maria Marten on July 24th, 1801. Her father, Thomas Marten, worked as a mole catcher. Maria was considered attractive and well known within the village, but her life was already complicated before William Corder entered it. Relationships with local men had resulted in 2 children. One child died in infancy. The other, Thomas Henry, survived and was supported financially by his father, Peter Matthews. In the eyes of many people in 19th century England, these circumstances damaged a woman's reputation. Maria lived under constant social scrutiny. Then she met William Corder. At first glance, he seemed to offer a way out. In reality, he may have been the greatest danger she would ever face. Corder was born around 1803, the son of a local farmer. He was clever, charming when necessary, and deeply untrustworthy. People in the area already knew him as a dishonest man. At school, he earned the nickname Foxy because of his sly behavior. He had fraudulently sold his father's pigs. He had passed a forged check. He had been linked to livestock theft. Even local criminals seemed to view him as dangerous. One man reportedly predicted that Corder would eventually end up on the gallows. Looking back, that statement feels almost prophetic. In March 1826, Maria Marten began a relationship with William Corder. The relationship quickly became serious. Eventually, Maria gave birth to Corder's child. The child later died. Despite everything, Maria appears to have believed marriage was still possible. For her, marriage represented stability, respectability, a future. For Corder, however, the situation was becoming increasingly difficult. According to the prosecution later, he never truly intended to marry her. Whatever his motives, events reached a critical point in May 1827. Corder proposed a plan. They would elope. They would meet at a local landmark known as the Red Barn. From there, they would travel to Ipswich and begin a new life together. The Red Barn stood on Barnfield Hill, roughly half a mile from the Marten home. It was a familiar local structure, an ordinary building that would soon become infamous. On May 18, 1827, Corder arrived at the Marten cottage. He claimed urgent action was needed. According to Maria's stepmother, Anne, Corder said authorities intended to prosecute Maria over her children born outside marriage. Whether he genuinely believed this or deliberately lied remains unknown. Maria hesitated. Leaving in daylight would attract attention. Corder suggested she disguise herself in men's clothing. He would carry her belongings ahead. She would meet him at the barn. Then they would leave together. It sounded plausible, perhaps even romantic. Maria agreed. She left home. She walked toward the red barn, and she disappeared. That was the last confirmed sighting of Maria Marten alive. Soon afterward, William Corder vanished as well. Months passed. Then letters began arriving. Corder claimed he and Maria were married. He claimed they were living happily. Sometimes he said they were on the Isle of Wight. Other times he offered different explanations. Maria could not write because she was ill, or because she had injured her hand, or because letters had been lost. Excuses piled upon excuses. Meanwhile, no one actually saw Maria, not once. Suspicion grew, and then everything changed. Nearly a year after Maria disappeared, Anne Marten began speaking about disturbing dreams. According to her account, she repeatedly dreamed that Maria had been murdered and buried inside the red barn. Today, such claims might be dismissed immediately. But 19th century Britain occupied an unusual space between traditional folk beliefs and emerging modern investigation. Dreams, omens, and supernatural stories still carried enormous cultural weight. Whether Anne truly believed her dreams, or whether she had other reasons for suspicion, remains one of the enduring mysteries of the case. What matters is what happened next. On April 19, 1828, she persuaded Thomas Marten to search the barn. He dug into one of the grain storage areas. Almost immediately, he discovered human remains buried in a sack. The body was badly decomposed, yet identification proved possible. Maria's sister recognized clothing and physical characteristics. A missing tooth matched what the family knew about Maria. Even more significant was a piece of evidence found with the body. A green handkerchief belonging to William Corder was wrapped around her neck. For investigators, this transformed suspicion into a viable criminal case. The investigation that followed reveals something fascinating about crime detection in the early 19th century. There were no fingerprints, no DNA analysis, no forensic laboratories, no modern homicide units. Investigators relied on witness testimony, physical objects, personal connections, and persistence. And persistence paid off. The local constable Ayres traced Corder through old contacts. Working with London police officer James Lee, he followed the trail to Brentford. What they found was astonishing. Corder had started a completely new life. He had married another woman named Mary Moore. He was operating a boarding house. Even more remarkable, he had met his new wife through a newspaper Lonely Hearts advertisement. In an age before dating apps, this was an extraordinary detail, and one that captivated the public. When Leah entered the boarding house, he found Corder calmly eating breakfast. The contrast could not have been greater. A man suspected of one of England's most notorious murders, sitting comfortably among guests as though nothing had happened. A search uncovered several troubling items: pistols, suspicious correspondence, and evidence suggesting Corder may have been preparing to flee abroad. The case was ready for trial. The trial began on August 7, 1828. Public fascination reached extraordinary levels. Hotels filled weeks beforehand. Courtroom access required tickets. Crowds overwhelmed officials. This case reveals an important truth about early mass media. The Red Barn murder emerged during a period when newspapers were becoming increasingly influential. For perhaps the first time, a murder case evolved into a true national media phenomenon. People consumed every detail. The press shaped public opinion long before a verdict was reached. The judge himself complained about prejudicial coverage. Yet the machine of public fascination could no longer be stopped. One major challenge confronted prosecutors. Maria's exact cause of death could not be determined. The body had been buried too long. Evidence suggested multiple possibilities. She may have been shot. She may have been strangled. A wound near the eye complicated matters further. To ensure conviction would not fail on a technicality, prosecutors constructed multiple charges. Witnesses testified. Family members spoke. Investigators presented evidence. Corder then offered his own explanation. He claimed they argued in the barn. He claimed he left. He claimed he later heard a gunshot and returned to find Maria already dead. The jury was unconvinced. After only 35 minutes of deliberation, they returned a guilty verdict. William Corder was sentenced to death. On August 11, 1828, he was hanged before an enormous crowd. Reports estimated attendance anywhere from 7,000 to 20,000 spectators. Just before execution, he acknowledged his guilt and accepted the justice of the sentence. Afterward came a practice that feels shocking to modern audiences. His body was publicly dissected. Thousands queued to view it. His skeleton was preserved. Death masks were made. Parts of his remains became museum objects. This reflects another important aspect of 19th century society. Public punishment was not merely about justice. It was also spectacle. Authorities believed exposure to punishment would discourage crime. Whether it actually worked remains debatable. Yet the story did not end with Corder's execution. In many ways, that was only the beginning. The Red Barn murder became a cultural phenomenon. Broadsides sold in enormous numbers. Ballads spread the story across Britain. Stage productions packed audiences. Souvenir hunters descended upon Polstead. Visitors chipped away pieces of Maria's gravestone. They stripped parts of the barn itself. Some estimates suggested 200,000 people visited the village in 1828 alone. The murder transformed from crime into legend. And that transformation teaches us something profound. People were not merely fascinated by violence. They were fascinated by the story. The doomed romance, the betrayal, the mysterious dreams, the hidden grave, the hunt for the killer. Every element seemed designed for public imagination. Even today, historians continue debating aspects of the case. Did Anne Marten truly dream of the burial site? Were there motives we still do not fully understand? How much of the popular version reflects reality, and how much reflects Victorian sensationalism? Those questions remain open. What does not remain open is the central tragedy. A young woman trusted someone she loved. She believed she was walking toward a future. Instead, she walked toward her death. Nearly 2 centuries later, the Red Barn murder remains one of Britain's most famous criminal cases. Not simply because of the murder itself, but because it reveals so much about the society that surrounded it. A world where reputation could destroy lives. A world where newspapers created celebrities out of criminals. A world where a village murder became a national obsession. And perhaps most hauntingly, a world where a hidden grave was discovered only after a dream pointed the way. What do you think? Did Anne Marten genuinely dream the location of Maria's body? Or had she noticed clues that her subconscious pieced together before she consciously realized it? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into historical true crime, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who loves mysteries from the past. Until next time, stay curious.